Hey guys, hey, welcome to another episode of a Film Life Vlog. I'm so glad you guys joined me, and today I will be doing a review of this lovely camera. This is the Nikon EM camera. Just take a good look at this camera. Such a beautiful camera, guys. Now, I've had this camera for a while. I actually have two of these cameras here, and even though I had them, I just had them in my cabinet, and I must say I was surprised by how much I enjoyed shooting with this camera, because this camera, you see, has always been like a lower end for the Nikon SLR cameras. It was manufactured between 1979 and 1982 by Nikon, and it was manufactured at a time when Nikon was facing stiff competition from Pentax, from Olympus, from Canon, and the market at the top for higher end cameras was very saturated with the Nikon F series and more professional offerings from the other competitors. It so happened that Nikon needed a lower end camera, one that would appeal to regular folk and also to women, because they figured that women were sort of intimidated by the heavier cameras, the heavier and more complicated cameras. So this is the camera that they designed, and I must say it is one very impressive camera. This camera is pretty much as simple as it gets. It only has three modes, three shooting modes on it, and that's what you see right up here. It's got the bulb mode. Once you set in the bulb mode, so you can basically expose your film as long as you want. The advantage of that is obviously with night photography, you can set your shutter speed for as long as you want, depending on the amount of light in your scene. The other mode that you see right here is the M90 mode. Now, this camera is electromechanically controlled. That means that it's not fully mechanical. This camera does need batteries to operate for the most part. If you don't have batteries to operate this, you can still operate this camera only at one speed, and that's this feature right here. Now, Nikon wanted to produce a camera that was easy to shoot with, but yet they wanted a camera that would also be able to shoot even if you didn't have batteries as well. So they created this mode here, which allows you to operate this camera mechanically even if you don't have any batteries in there. But here's the catch: it only operates at 1/90th of a second at this mode, and at this mode you can only have one shutter speed. But that's okay, because if you have a light meter and you know that the shutter speed is 1/90th of a second, you can adjust the aperture on the lens to fit your light setting. It's like a compromise, right? They didn't give it a fully manual mode, but yet you have that, so you can shoot with one speed and you can adjust your aperture accordingly. That's very limited. I mean, you cannot do certain things that you can do in a fully manual mode. So yeah, it is what it is. In the auto mode, this camera would basically be an Aperture Priority mode camera. It means that you set your aperture and the camera will determine the corresponding shutter speed. That is the best shutter speed to give you at your aperture that you set, that will give the best exposure. I found that shooting with this camera was almost like shooting with a point and shoot camera. I didn't have any issues shooting with this camera at all. I would totally recommend this camera for a beginner. I would also recommend it for even someone who's experienced in film photography but yet wants a camera that they can just take out with the family on an outing, on a hike. I mean, at the auto setting, there's not much you have to worry about. It was nice. It took attention away from the camera and allowed me to focus on my subjects. That's my family. So I really did enjoy shooting with this camera. It's a small sized camera. Right now this is equipped with a Series E lens. Now the Nikon E series of lenses, they were considered to be good quality but yet cheaper. Okay, so Nikon designed that in mind, knowing that this whole camera system was meant for less professional folks that just a regular everyday person could pick this up at a lower price. This camera sold for about $240 when it came out originally, which is kind of impressive, because if you look on eBay right now, you would find that a camera like this is selling for just about the same price right now. So this camera has held its value throughout all these years, these decades, since the 70s and the early 80s. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, so that's pretty impressive. Now the size comparison between a camera like this here and one like this Nicomat here is just incredible. This camera is much larger than this one here, and it also weighs about twice as much as this one here. So if you were to carry a camera like this around for quite a bit, you're going to start feeling it. Whereas a camera like this I could take with me on a hike and it doesn't become a burden. It's actually quite light. And ironically, this camera production stopped in 1978 and production started on this camera in 1979. Now on top of the camera here, there's a battery strength indicator here. So you just depress this and you can see it just light up. You see that light up right there? And it just shows if you have enough power in your batteries. So this here is the self timer. I barely use it, but it's there if you're bold enough to try it. The thing with film cameras is the less you use these self timers, the better for you, because it's only for the brave. If you're not brave, don't use the self timer. Many film cameras have broken down because people have been bold enough to try them. So to unmount this lens from the mount here, you just you have to depress on this button here and you spin it and it just comes off. Now this lens will fit on any standard F-mount Nikon system. So I'm gonna put it back on, twist it counterclockwise, and then it fits on. I've always liked the shutter sound on this camera. Just listen. That's a really nice sound. I find it's very robust. It's not too loud. It's almost perfect, guys. It's almost perfect, and it feels really good. Try it again. Yeah, that feels good. That really feels good. It's a nice solid firing mechanism there. And if you look in the viewfinder, I find the viewfinder is not the biggest, but it's not the smallest either. It's somewhere on the bigger end. And as you look in the viewfinder, you're going to see the bar that has the shutter speeds, and the indicator just goes up and down from shutter speed 1 second to 1/1000th of a second, and depending on your aperture that you set here and depending on the lighting condition, it's going to show you which shutter speed that this camera has selected for you. and that's because now I'm shooting in the auto mode. If I were to switch this to the M90 mode, remember that this is now manual. I can only get one speed. So even doing this, nothing is, yeah, the indicator doesn't, it just flips all the way to the top, meaning it's disengaged. If I flip this back to auto and I try this again, now because I'm looking right into this bright window right here, it's saying it's 1/1000th of a second. As I move it here, it's now 1/125th of a second. Now what I noticed, and with the beep that you heard like this, it means it's overexposed, right? This is trying to draw my attention. Did you hear that beep right there? Yeah, that means that my exposure now is overexposed. So I have to pay attention to what it's telling me. It's telling me that it's over 1/1000th of a second, because that light coming through this window here, which is in front of me, is way too bright. And that's because my aperture is at f2.8 right now. So in this case, I'm just gonna bring my aperture to maybe f11 or f16 even. It's now at f11, and when I try to shoot the same scene from this window, it's now saying 1/125 of a second, which is good. So the built-in light meter really works, and it only works in the auto mode. So remember that. It is worth noting, you notice this little button right here. So this one here is the exposure compensation button. It's actually really cool. Whenever you are in a backlit situation where you have a subject with a really bright background or backlight, if you shoot under a normal mode, like I'm facing this window right now, what you'll get is a silhouette. You have this camera basically metering for the light in the background, and it will make your subject too dark. In order to avoid that situation, what you do is when you're focusing on the subject, just press this button down. And what you will notice is it will just bring your shutter speed down by 2 stops, which means that it will allow for more exposure, for more light to get to your film, hence making your subject brighter. Okay. The only thing you have to watch out for is that then sometimes it will also blow out the background. So oftentimes it's always best to avoid a backlit situation. When I'm shooting, for example, and I see my subject in the backlight, I would just slide to the side of the subject so that I can capture the light actually falling on them, rather than try and compete with the bright lights in the background. If you're facing the sun, you can just change your position slightly, so you take a photo of the sun being incident on your subject's face or on your subject, rather than try and compete with the sun. I mean, these features can only do so much for you, so just be mindful of that. Now overall, I must say that I really enjoy the images that I got from this camera. At the end of the day, it's really about the quality of the lens, and it's also about the shooting experience, whether or not you enjoy shooting with this camera. And for me personally, even though I've shot with so many different cameras, from high-end cameras to low-end cameras, this camera felt really nice to shoot with. It just felt nice. I didn't have any issues. I had no frustrations. So for me, that to me is a lot of value there, right? I'm not taking professional photos, and even if I was, I bet you I could take those with a camera like this, depending on the lens that I put on it. I enjoy shooting with it. I just felt like I wasn't lacking anything. I don't think I'm lacking anything, and I must say the images that I got from this camera were really, really nice. I mean, check it out for yourself. Hey, so thanks for watching this video. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why don't you leave this video a like? And if you have not already subscribed, why don't you subscribe to this channel? There'll be a lot of videos coming during this quarantine phase, so we all get some entertainment. So thanks guys for joining me once again, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, even if you're stuck at home. And as always, stay safe.